Happy Lefties Day. At least that's what I'm calling it. So today we're going to dig into left-handedness, including some neurobiology, some universal biases, and some specific idioms that we use in English that you might not know. And I'm discussing all of this with my OBM, my online business manager, William. You probably know him. And he's basically my right-hand man, or should I say left-hand man. And with this, I've realized I have a lot of lefties in my life. My brother, my best friend, my roommate, William, a ton of my friends, they're all lefties. And I have a small challenge for you today. I want you to see if you can count the number of times that we inadvertently say the word right in the middle of our conversation. So now let's get on with the show. I'm Bianca, your personal American accent coach, and I'm here to help you master an American accent in English because your voice is your choice when it comes to how you sound. I try to release a podcast episode every 2 weeks, and so you should really subscribe to whatever podcast platform you use so that you don't miss the newest episode. Now, let's get on with the show. Woohoo! Welcome everybody. This is William, and he is left-handed. Give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Guillaume. If you watch this instead of listening as a podcast, you'll see my name tag. Here you go. Usually Americans, they don't pronounce it well.
Yeah, that's why we default to William.
Yeah, that's why I usually go by William.
Mm-hmm.
And I am an OBM, online business manager with Bianca.
Mm-hmm. And you're something else too.
I am a left-hander.
Exactly.
Left-hander. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. Turns out that I was born as a left-hander. It's something I didn't choose to be. Mm-hmm. And that's why we're doing this today, because in August 13th, it's the what? Legally, is the
I think it's international.
It's the
Left-handers Day.
Yeah, it's the International Left-handers Day.
Handers Day. Yeah, it's such a weird way to phrase it, right? You could say like National Lefties Day or National Left-handedness Day, but to be Left-handers Day, I feel like that's already kind of, how should we say, pejorative. And we're going to talk about how later on like it has a stigma, we could say.
Yeah, so we'll cover very briefly what it is, the stigma, as you said, and so on. Later in a language level, there are some idiomatic expressions. Some are more funny that you might think that, oh, wow, it doesn't seem like it's related to left, but it is, or to right.
Sometimes language is funny like that, I would say. But to kick us off, because we said, oh, let's do a podcast episode. Oh, let me go do some research on this. No, you've done your deep dives into this before, and you've also, like you said, lived with this forever. So give us a little maybe background of your own left-handedness, let's say, information.
Yeah, so basically it started at the school system that, it's a left-handed. At least I'm not as old as my parents and so on, that they were forced to use the right because of, how do you call it? Because of
mandated, they were forced. Yeah, they were forced to do, maybe because of prejudice, right?
Yeah, religious beliefs and so on, because 50-50 in my family, it's left-handers. So it's all represented in my family. Right? So then in the school, okay, no big deal, because now we don't force kids to use the right. But you want to use the scissors to do some workshop in class. Oh, that doesn't work, because it works if you use the right hand, right? Oh, then your kid is like less skilled, less dexterity. No, I'm just using tools for a different side, right? This does happen here and there. It was an advantage when I played basketball. It would have been more advantages like tennis, like Rafael Nadal, for instance. He was a right-handed, but he trained his left because it's an advantage in the sport, right? So I remember a lot of times, I was using my dominant side, and I was better because, it's my right hand is a wooden hand, right? So it seemed that I was better than actually I was. It's because it was always my dominant side.
So we could say there were mini perks in life. Yeah,
mini perks. Because usually defenders are not used to this side because just frequency, basically. But also negatives, like in the school, later in the school system, when I did exams, that you have this thing, in Spanish is called pupitre, is where you sit that also has the side to handwrite. When I did handwriting in the school, oh my God, now I feel old.
Because now everybody's typing. Yeah, I took word processing when I was in high school. Yeah, we had word processors.
So what happened, we're going to cover this later in detail, but just that I had always native side because I had to request one for left-handers. If they had, in some public institutions, they didn't. So I had to do a position that it seemed like I was cheating, like, hey, what my neighbor is doing. No, it's because I'm using my hand. I had terrible back pain, or I started the exam because it was a forced position, and I did exams of 5 hours. Back in the day, that was thing. Or I had to wait until everyone did the exam, started the exam, and then when I requested, hey, I'm left-handed, then they do. It's like I felt like I was disabled. Because the protocol for disabled people was the same. So I was in queue with the disabled. Or you have your special desk that is like mirrored. So I can do. So what happened? I did the same thing, but this consumed time. So if they had 1 hour to do the exam, I had 55 minutes because everyone has already started, right? So those extra minutes, sometimes it's crucial, makes a difference.
Yeah.
And it's just because I was left-handed.
Right. Like you said, it was almost like, at least back then, I don't know how it is now. If you guys know out there who are listening, tell us. But now you have accommodations, right? You have different abilities that are recognized. And so, you don't have to lose time or you're not penalized, for those kinds of things. So, yeah.
I go to the Chinese store and there are left-handed scissors. Before, when I was 20 years ago, I had to go in a specialized shop for left-handed people. Now, the regular stuff like scissors and so on, it's available already.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny you mentioned that because, I live in Mexico. For people who are listening who don't know, I'm living in Mexico. And there's a nearby shopping mall, and I went in, coming soon, Lefties store. I don't know if this chain is European or American. Maybe you've heard of it.
I was about to mention that.
I thought it was going to be a store of left-handed scissors and all these like accommodated things. No, it's sweatshirts and
actually,
things like that.
This happened in a shopping mall in Barcelona that I went with a friend for the first time. It's bigger than I used to because I live in a nearby city. And oh my God, there's this, there's that, and then Lefties. And I thought, hey, it makes sense because this mall has like 4 different stories. It's absolutely huge. It's large enough that has a store just for a niche, right? Right. You have other niches.
Specialized stores. Yeah, exactly.
And you go there, oh my God, it's just clothing. And I realized, wait, what do you mean by lefties? Is that something that is left? Like what hasn't been
left over?
Yeah,
maybe.
What hasn't been sold? So it's just, okay, this is just leftovers kind of thing that is very cheap.
That's what it is, leftovers. So maybe.
Yeah. It's, oh my God, it's not what I thought. But based on the name, and that's also because as the start of today, you said, well, we have left-handers, left-handedness, lefties. There are quite a few ways to say this. It's not like there's a list in English. There's not one label. You can use different things. And also in English, left has other meanings. There's nothing left. There's the money left on the table.
The word L-E-F-T, exactly.
Yeah, or point. I left home.
It could be positive, it could be negative. We're going to jump into that later, but let's rewind a little bit and talk a little bit about biology and neurobiology, I guess. Like what percentage of people, if you know, would be like what percentage of people are designated as righties and what percentage is lefties? And are there any interesting facts that you want to share with us?
Yeah, very briefly, you may know already that left-handedness is a minority. It's more than you may think. I was told when I was a kid it was 2%.
Yeah.
Turns out it's 10%, more or less. Of course, okay. It's a rough estimate. What happens is that depending on the demographics or where you look for or when, because it's also important, like my parents or my grandparents, they were forced to use the right kind of thing. So it's 10%. I think it's quite a lot. 1 every 10.
Yeah. Yep. It's not bad.
Yeah. In the US, there are still more obese people than left-handed people.
I didn't hear that. I didn't know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, but depends on, it's the analogy, depends on where you look. If you look at Japan, that the obesity rates are super low, perhaps there are more left-handed people than obese people.
Could be. Yeah, absolutely.
But to open this perspective, you know that there are some theories why this happens, why not everyone is right-handed, right?
Yeah.
The left is reused and the right is also reused.
We say right as in correct, right? But we don't say left as in isn't it, or some other meaning, to oppose that. Yeah, absolutely. It's totally subconscious, right? Yeah. So anything else you want to add about like maybe fun facts or statistics or anything like that? Maybe then we can get into the idea of this kind of universal thought of left being bad or negative or something like that. But any more other little intro ideas?
Yeah, because we want to focus on the language stuff. Just to let you know that you may have heard, seen, or something, some theories of left-handed people, that they are genius, they're more intelligent, they're more creative because they use the right side of the brain, something like this. So just to let you know that are hypotheses. There's nothing conclusive, hard evidence, statistically significant evidence. So take it with a grain of salt. And since it's not our area of expertise, so I have a lot of evidence that is anecdotal evidence of what I have lived as any other lefty that is left.
Yeah. Ching. Exactly. So continuing with this idea of meaning, and we were saying that like, oh, right is incorrect. That's a positive thing, right? Versus left as in, oh, whatever's left over, right? Often that's maybe slightly negative if we polarize it a little bit. But what other like handedness, let's say, phrases or history did you come up with when you were researching this?
Yeah, so some I already knew because English is my third language. So I speak Spanish and Catalan natively. So basically they use the Latin root. And you also have the French, the Old English, and so on. So I will just visit some of them. So for instance, the Latin word Dexter, you may have heard this from a TV show, Dexter, means on the right side and has evolved with positive, but that means dexterity. When you move, like a musician, an illusionist that has a lot of dexterity with the car, doing what's called sleight of hand.
Right.
That you have to do it very precise, very quickly. This usually is called dexterity. Just means right side. So here you can appreciate some bias that right means correct, or in English is already right means right. All right. So it's more clear in English you cannot get.
Or exactly. Yeah. Or good or talented in a way, right? Yeah.
Another word, perhaps less common, but if your first language is from a Roman language, dexteritas, ambidiestro in Spanish, means that you can use both hands, which some people do, are born with this. Like I was born being a lefty. Some people have both. And this actually means having two right hands.
If you break down the word, if dextra means coming from the right, and then you say ambi right, and you're like both right, ambidextrous
both
means
right.
Kind of two right hands or both
so
doubly right, maybe.
Being able to use both hands, meaning that you have two right hands. Literally. If you use the Latin roots, is exactly what is written. But then the meaning is what has shifted. And then the English gets this from the Latin or from the French, but the French got it from the Latin anyways.
Right. But still the default is that the right side is the dominant and default, we could say. Like so that's still behind the meaning in a way.
This is from the right. Then on the left side, perhaps I'm mirrored. If you see this on YouTube, I might be mirrored. So there's another Latin word, that sinistra, which means the left side. Sinistra. So sinister, you know what this already in English.
Yeah.
A sinister movie or sinister event.
Character, we could say,
That means bad luck or something at least negative.
Evil, malevolent in a way, bad intentions, exactly.
And in some other languages, like Spanish, siniestro, which is sinistro, it's the same root, is when you smash a car in an accident that is a totally breakdown.
Ah, okay. I didn't know that.
When there's no repair, that it's impossible to repair the car.
Yeah.
So
we say it's totaled.
Totaled. Okay. So total means sinistro. So it literally means left, as in left side.
Left as in nothing left.
Yeah. But in this case, left in Spanish doesn't have this meaning of left.
Right.
But just meaning the left side means it's totaled beyond repair. And this is a legal term because of the insurance. If you get the money, so there's a huge difference if it's totaled or not. And just means left.
Right.
My God.
Exactly. So here's this. It's kind of like, it reminds me of how when they would name natural phenomenon, right? And what got named as gendered male versus female, right? Most earthquakes and things like that, they used to be named under female names.
Yeah.
And then now, I think hurricanes now? I think they go, at least in the US, they go like male name, female name, male name, female name. And so they try to go back and forth because there used to be this huge predominance, of having natural disasters named under feminine, grammatical feminine names. So isn't that funny? The left is always quite negative. And then so we've got Latin, two different Latin roots. And then we've got
for right
the
and left,
French as well. That's true for left and right. Yeah. And then we've also got something mirrored again. So in Spanish and probably Romanian as well, I imagine also in Italian as too, but in French as well, I imagine.
Yeah. Here you will have to help me because I don't speak French myself. So there's a word, how you will pronounce droit. I will say droit, like in Detroit, the city.
This one, So again, handedness, right? For right, if I'm turning right, or which hand, I'm using an adjective, it would be droit, right? Droit. So I guess it's the adverb in this case. It would be à droite, to the right, let's say.
Which means, in English, skillful.
Or in French, we could say, so the literal translation would be to the right, but like we said, also dexterous, somebody who's dexterous, right, is usually, for me, at least in English, if I'm dexterous, it's quite physical, right? I can play the violin, my piano skills are really good. But if I say this person is very adroit, right, then I would say, oh, they're very clever, right? Maybe it's physical too, like this ballerina's pose is very adroit, meaning more like on point, right, and skillful, something more like that, but coming from the right side, right?
Yeah, that's the right. And what about the left? How you say left?
So this great vowel here, it's like our O, gauche, meaning actually, since we were talking about this earlier in, I think it's Madrid or is it Barcelona, where they've got that cathedral that Gaudi built.
Yeah, in Barcelona.
It's in Barcelona, right? So we actually use gauche in the US often to mean like a bit bold, a little too much gold trimming, right? We would say like, that's a bit gauche, meaning trying too hard, but it makes it kind of unfashionable in a way, a bit ugly, without tact. So it has something to do with class as well. So to say something is gauche, but I would not call it positive at all.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's like the yin yang. It's positive with something negative or negative with something positive at the very least. You still get something. And now it turns out that English has borrowed this word from French and means to be someone who is, it goes gauche, how it's pronounced?
Gauche, with a SH. Gauche.
So in English, if you say someone is gauche, means someone is socially awkward.
Yeah, the person.
Relates to something negative. Once again, left is relating something negative. In French, or even though in French doesn't have this meaning, but has been transferred to a different language, English in this case. But a lot of languages, at least European languages, they have this bias. This pattern is very common. It's not that, it's this root that we just cherry-picked and so on. We only picked a few because we could continue and do a 10-hour episode discussing this.
Well, I was going to say, we should probably ask the audience, hey, guys, if you're out there and you're listening, if you speak Hindi, if you speak Russian, if you speak Chinese, right, if you speak other languages, and yeah, if this is also a thing, Arabic, whatever, if you speak another language and you're like, oh, yeah, we have this kind of pejorative language use, too, around handedness, let us know. Like, send us a message, you know, or in the community, you can drop a little comment or something like that.
And what's fascinating, that's why I want to use the language. I'm comfortable. I know because I speak the languages or the same family. So I could tell you something about Chinese, but it's outside of my domain.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like about Spanish is that to say left, you have two options. Or for a person who is a lefty, is a left-handed, you have two words because you can use different roots. So you can say zurdo or mano, my hand, mano zurda. You can say that. Or you can also say izquierdo or mano izquierda because Spanish is a gendered language. So you have masculine and feminine. And izquierdo, in this case, bypasses the Latin root. It's a different thing and related to what we discussed about dexterity and so on.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it comes from Basque. It's one of the other languages most people don't know, spoken in Spain, even today. A minority language and a very old language that is not unrelated to Latin, Greek, and so on. It's like language isolate. Isolate or isolate?
I would say isolate. Isolate.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's isolated, right? But it's an isolate.
So theoretically, the root comes from here. When you say the Spanish izquierdo, instead of zurdo, the two options you have. And what's the real meaning? In that language, means crooked or defective. So the defective hand or the crooked hand means the left hand.
Oh, wait, which of the Spanish words that we now use in Spanish? That one is the meaning of, okay, what does that one mean again?
Crooked or defective.
Okay. Because I was trying to think of the other one. The other one, you spell it with the letter Z, right? Is it Z or S? Z-U-R-D-O?
Yeah, zurdo and izquierdo both have the Z. Yeah, it's not helpful for this. So zurdo starts with the Z and izquierdo has the vowel, the I, and then the Z.
Right. But it is helpful to me because I'm going to make this weird connection right now, right? So you are left-handed, starts with a Z. Z, I'm going to spell it out in English. Z-U-R-D-O, correct?
Yep.
So Z-U-R-D-O. Enlighten us, please. What is the word in Spanish for somebody who is deaf, as in cannot hear?
I see what you're going. Yeah, sordo.
How do I spell it, though?
S-O-R-D-O.
So, because my Spanish is also, my pronunciation is not always great. So, Z-U-R-D-O versus S-O-R-D-O. Can you say both? Can you say left-handed and deaf?
Zurdo and sordo.
Okay, so or. I'm overdoing it, obviously. The vowel is different, but for you, the consonant, the Z and the S, do you say them the same?
Yep.
Okay, so you say them the same. I wouldn't, because I'm looking at it. I'm seeing letter Z. I'm seeing letter S. Here's the funny thing. You are left-handed. I am deaf in one ear. So we are zurdo and sordo, right? That's our nickname.
Yeah. There is like a movie, the blind, the deaf, and the nana.
Deaf, dumb, and blind, we would say.
Yeah, they try to go in a bank, steal money, something like this. It's comedy. But it's very well put together, and the disability of everyone is like match, so they could penetrate each other, and in a comic way, the deaf and the lefty, el zurdo y el sordo. And as I mentioned when I did the exam, that I was treated like being a lefty, it was a disability.
Or a criminal in a way. Like, it's like, I'm taken out.
Yeah. And in Spanish, it's also a family name. You can be called izquierdo and zurdo, I think even both.
Nice. And while we're on the subject of like maybe pejorativeness and like having a preference in a way. So you're left-handed. I'm deaf in one ear. I'm actually deaf in my right ear, deaf in my left ear, which makes my right ear my good ear. So something that I find that I do is I'm always obviously sitting on this side of somebody. Somebody's always on this side of me. They're on my right side, so I can hear them, right? And when they're not, it's super uncomfortable because I'm like turning my head. I'm trying to read their lips. It's really uncomfortable. And something you maybe didn't know is that surprising but unrelated. My brother is deaf as well, but he's deaf in the other ear, right? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for laughing. No.
And no, it's fine. And also, he is left-handed, right? So when we would sit at the dinner table, there was no way we could sit next to each other because either we were bumping elbows or he couldn't hear me. At that time, I had both ears of hearing. And so we had the hardest time sitting next to each other because there was no good side for us, right? And even now, when I'm walking down the street with somebody, I'll just instinctively move. And people are like, what are you doing? I said, oh, let me just move around so I can hear you better. But I think you have a preference for your side too, right?
Yeah. So I have naturalized this to so much degree that I didn't realize this. I have the same issue when on a table with more people that I'm using my left to eat, right? So then with the person I have on my right, yeah, we clash together. This also happened with my wife because, oh, you use so much space unnecessarily. It's because I'm using my left side of the space. That's why we clash, right? That's why usually, for instance, this year I get married. That's why I can say wife. I get married this year.
Yeah.
So I was very lenient. Okay, you want to do this, let's do that. You don't want to do that, let's drop it. But something was non-negotiable is that I will be on the left side in the
we're getting married. Like this is sorry. Even if you think I'm taking up too much space, like I need to be on this side.
Even the ring, this is super protocolized. I'm sorry, but you will put the finger on my other hand because my left is my dominant side. So I will have it on this hand, right?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. This is weird. I'm left-handed, bro.
Right.
It's my wedding. It's my call.
You have to say to your now wife, hey, this is who you're marrying a lefty. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So some people put the Star Wars song or they are dressed of Elvis Presley, whatever. Yeah, this is a very small that I'm using the other hand. What about it? It's not a big deal. But some people, when they seen that, or I told them, is really like they were like strange, weirded out that you really did this because the protocol says the opposite. So this is an anecdote, but it's something that if it's my choice, I will always prefer the other one. For instance, on the bed, I prefer to be on the left side. Even in the waiting room, if there's a waiting room, even if there's someone that looks dangerous and unfriendly, I will sit next to that person so I can be on the left with my wife. I'm more comfortable with someone that looks suspicious.
And you're just so used to it. Yeah, it becomes muscle memory, things like that. Yeah, I automatically sit in certain seats. Like sometimes I realize and I'll ask people to move, but sometimes I just do the thing and I don't even think about it, right? Because like you said, the protocols are for other people, but we have to accommodate.
We only talk about the hand, but it's also the feet, the eye. You have a dominant eye. It goes beyond this. Turns out I'm left dominant in everything. Absolutely everything. The ear, the eye, the feet, with which advantage in basketball as well, because I could jump higher when using the left. Turns out a lot of left-handed people, their dominant feet is still the right. Every time you go, if it's 10% or 2%, then out of this, 90% they will have right feetness.
Right, footedness, I suppose.
Footedness, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's why since everything is very dominant from the same side, I feel comfortable when I use my dominant.
Yeah, now that you mention that, I used to snowboard a lot and I was teaching in snowboarding and let's call it footedness because you would always ask somebody like, hey, if I threw a ball at you, which leg would you use to kick that ball instinctively, right? Or what do you use to go up the stairs, right? And there's a bias there for sure. And when somebody didn't conform to that bias, what was the name for them? Goofy. They were goofy-footed, right? So again, you're saying whatever the minority is, you're like, oh no, that's wrong, that's weird, that's funny, that doesn't make any sense, right? So yeah, this is super interesting. And I think it even goes all the way down to, well, I'm deaf in one ear, but what if I were deaf in both ears and I had to speak sign language? I think there's even something about
I was
that
about to
too,
mention
right?
this because, wait, there are languages that are, I think in there.
We call them signed languages. So whatever the language is, you can have a signed version or multiple.
Turns out you might think there's only one. No, you have the American English, you have there are many.
Absolutely, yeah.
But what happens is that you use your upper limbs, not just the hands, like the body, your face, and so on, Turns out that if you're left-handed, some of the movements are just one-sided only. It's like they're not symmetric. They're not symmetrical. Then even if you use the left, you have to use, let's replace this to simplify, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if I'm using my left, I have to use the same direction as if I was using my right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what you have done? It's mirrored. It's symmetrical. So you have to do the same you will do on the right side, but with your left. So you have to say, the shape of making this up, the shape of a hook or something like that. Then this movement you will have to do following the direction of a right-handed sign.
Because it doesn't look the same, right? So even if, like, you think about the normal, like, let's say, peace sign, right? You got those two fingers up. And when you do it the other way, right, it could have a whole different meaning. But also, like, you just see it differently. The silhouette is different. And,
yeah, exactly.
And things like
That's
that.
why
so,
a left-handed person, most of the time, will be doing the mirror version. But some of them, they look different because they're not symmetrical. They're not symmetrical, so then a left-handed person will have a more awkward time to do this gesture.
Oh, that's such a good point. Yeah.
Even though with gesture and so on, there's still some bias, or you will have to design the language to be 100% symmetrical.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you mentioned with scissors and left-handed scissors, how you as a lefty, you'd have to kind of, in your brain, kind of mirror the usage of the scissors, right? I'm imagining, I signed languages, not much anyways, like you'd have to imagine what is my, let's call it a listener, what is the receiver seeing in my sign, and does that make sense to them? And they might have to like adjust and mirror their signs for that.
So we'll go outside of this because neither of us knows American Sign Language.
Yeah, not too much.
If I tell you, using your fingers, point again.
Point? Just point?
Yeah, so you use your right hand to point again, right? You might be two fingers like this or ta-ta-ta. But if you ask me, I would have used my left hand instead.
Oh, that's very true.
So even if I don't speak, I don't know any sign language, just the common thing, or asking a taxi, someday I traveled alone to a different place to visit a hospital. So I got there by car, but then I had to go back by public transportation with bus. But it was somewhere else that I'm not used to. And what I did is what I always usually do in my city, like this, hey, and the bus didn't stop. What the F? Because it's like the taxi that less like a code. Yeah, I don't know what his mind, but
see you later.
Yes, because they're so used to that it's the other way around. And on top of that, you're doing it on the side that is less visible because you have like a place that in case it rains and so on with a few seats. If I use my right, it's facing outside. It's facing the street, the road. If I'm facing I'm facing the vehicle, I use my left, it's kind of hidden because it's inside. But if I turn, I will be not facing the vehicle. And turns out it was a Sunday and a holiday. So it was passing the bus I wanted every an hour and a half. I waited half an hour. It just ignored me. And I had to wait 1 hour and a half on a very intense, because it was summer, a very intense sun. And since I was dropped off before, I had nothing on me. It was nowhere in the mountain, so I could not get water or whatever. Next time, it's like...
Let me wave both arms just in case.
Yeah. I will make sure that, what a weirdo. Yeah, you thought, what a weirdo, but you stopped. It's gonna...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I learned my lesson that, okay, from now on, now I use my right hand, even though it's awkward. But it was as a good example that what usually the lefty does is the mirrored exercise, that what they have to do on the right is the mirrored version of the left, is the other person that has to do this mental exercise.
Yeah.
And what happens? That they're not used to. If I am left-handed, even if it's taxing and it's difficult, I have more experience doing this mental process.
Yeah, if I had to sign my name in sign language, like I know that this is a B and this is an I. If I had to B, I, and then I'm thinking, is this an A or would I have to do this, right? I have to think like, what do they need to see? And I'd have to process that, right? So yeah, speaking of in general, you pay a lot of, we could say, invisible taxes, for being a lefty.
Yeah, the left. And you could say the lefty tax.
The lefty tax, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Besides being more prone to accidents and things like that because of our right-handed world. Yeah.
I was laying this usually outside of the UK. I don't know if Australia or some other countries, most of the world drive on the right side.
Ah, that's true.
In the UK, which was the original, by the way, was the left. You have to choose for a left person when you drive. At the beginning, it's awkward because you will always go to the left. Unless you are in the UK, But even if it's the UK, where's the driver? If your country goes in the left, the road is on the left, the person, the driver, is on the right side of the vehicle anyways. They reverse this inside the cars. So what they will want is go to the left and on the vehicle be on the left side still. This doesn't exist, to my knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what we mentioned before were the roots, the left and right. But in English, you also have what's called idiomatic expression.
True. So yeah, I think being a lefty is you're paying like invisible taxes, right? There's more of a cognitive load there, right? You're more prone to injury and accident as well. And then, like we said too, like just like language and culture is kind of like against this whole idea. Speaking of language, and we dropped a few before, but we've got idioms actually in English that also referred to that too. Tell me some too that you like, especially as like, let's say your third language is English. Are there any lefty idioms that have stuck out to you?
One that I learned like just a few years ago, so quite late in my life, in a TV late night show. I forgot who and the context, but the response, it was, oh, you smell so nice to be you, or something on those lines. And they said, oh, it's a very good example of a left-handed compliment. Because if I tell you, you smell nice, it's something positive. Yeah. But in the context, it's actually not.
For this. So it's not 100% a compliment, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looks nice, but it's like it was sarcastic in a way. It's not this case, but to make a concrete example. That you smell so nice to be obese.
Right.
Oh, so for being obese, you look nice. Yeah, but you just call me obese.
Yeah.
And
it's a compliment buried within a bigger insult, basically.
Exactly. And you expect me to be smelly, which that's not a compliment at all.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Thanks. You're just like, why would you say? Yeah, left-handed compliment. That's a good one too. I think that's a good point because like it just shows what the person's real intention was. Maybe when you pick it apart like that, and it's like when people say, "Well, I don't mean to complain," but you're like, you're about to complain actually. And so when you hear those compliments, you say, "That wasn't nice at all. That wasn't a compliment at all." Right? Yeah.
I just realized with this example that, for instance, I could not have enlisted in the military service if I wanted to, because you have to be right-handed.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, I had no idea. I don't know.
Or at least back then, so when I turned 18, it's because you have the protocol and the uniformity, so if you have one that is mirrored, it's not working and so on. I remember that one of the requisites was to use the right hand. So basically, left-handed compliment goes in line with what we said, that is, yeah, it's not pejorative, but it's kind of negative. And it's using the left, but it's something that doesn't exist in my native language.
As an idiom, as that specific idiom and that usage and that meaning.
For instance, we have, translated back to English, to wake up with the left foot, in Spanish. That means that you have waken up angry, bad mood.
Right. Where we would say waking up on the wrong side of the bed, which we don't specify.
Which is this, but the wrong side is the left.
Right.
And turns out is when I learned this expression in Spanish, is I told my mom, did you know that I always wake up with the left for every single day because the other side is the wall. So it's physically impossible. I had to turn on my side, and since my dominant is left, every single day I was waking up or standing up with my left. Yeah, so if you don't like my humor, now you know why. Because I always
You're
wake
so
up.
grumpy, because you always wake up with the left side or the left foot. actually, that's a good point. Don't we often say, let's start off on the right foot, right? Meaning right side. Like, let's get off on the right foot. We haven't gotten off on the right foot. Like, let's start over, that kind of thing. Yeah. Speaking of feet, I think there's another good expression.
This one is not as common.
Okay.
It's 2 left feet.
This one's more specific. It's more about dancing. I'm sure stepping on people's toes and things like that. So when somebody is not a very adroit dancer.
Which is the case, but not because I'm left-handed. It's just that with the music related with the tempo, I'm terrible.
Maybe it does come from that originally, but maybe you're tapping the left foot instead of tapping the right foot. So it's like you're off beat or something. But yeah, if we say you have 2 left feet, usually it refers to dancing specifically.
Yeah, dancing, it was coined by someone in France, I think, like a century or kind of a century ago. And it's like the opposite of ambidextrous. Instead of having 2 right hands, you have 2 left. And instead of hands, is the feet.
Right.
But it's the analogous, but just the opposite in negative.
Exactly.
That you're clumsy because both of your feet are left.
They're both going the wrong way or something.
Having 2 left feet. But this is a set phrase. It's not just that's the meaning of the root. No, it's literally what you say is the set phrase.
That's the idiom, exactly. And there's a meaning behind it. That's why we call it an idiom, because I know all the words there. I know 2, I know left, I know feet, but when I put them together, they have a deeper meaning depending on the language, right? Because they have different idioms in different languages. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about that's just dancing. And then I'm sure a lot of sports as well have idioms that refer to like good or bad or, things like that, including baseball.
Yeah, those I checked up because I'm not into baseball. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize. I'm not really into it either.
I know it's a big thing, the Major League in the US, and there's a lot of money involved. But for me, it's painfully boring to watch that. So I did some research, and turns out there's a phrase that out of the left field. I don't know. Did you hear this?
No, the in there. This is a good one. And I guess maybe it was like, I don't remember when this phrase was coined. We could probably look it up. But I kind of remember in the 50s or so, like, having this more nationalistic time or patriotic time where apple pie and baseball and things. And I think a lot of idioms came out of that. Like you might say, oh, that was a home run if you're not talking about baseball, meaning, I don't know, you got the job offer or something like that. So we use this out of left field, meaning unexpected, because I guess it has something to do with most people being right-handed and hitting the ball. The fact that if something landed in the left field, that was pretty rare, right? So then they would throw the ball from left field. So if something came out of left field, it's not expected, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
But that snuck into regular conversation now. So if I say that as an idiom and we're talking about, whatever, we're talking about, I don't know, homework and business and things like that, I can use that phrase still, meaning unexpected.
Yep, like a home run is something positive that you go beyond and so on. Theoretically comes from when the ball goes outside of the field. Thrown ball arrives behind or the runner's vision. Perhaps now with cameras and so on, that doesn't happen. But perhaps back then, it's like this happens, at least to me in golf, that you see the camera is, where are you pointing? I don't see the ball. I need AI to tell me it's like a pointer.
Tiny thing. Yeah.
They are skilled and trained. So I guess it will be like this, that, it went like nowhere, that I cannot see it. It went, and then it's like in the left field, meaning in the wrong side. More or less, it goes in that direction.
My view is obscured maybe because of how the stadium is set up, that because we're not expecting things to go there. Yeah, for example, when I watch hockey, for example, that I love it when they put the little tracer on the puck so you can follow it around more easily, because it's really difficult to see, like you're saying in golf and baseball, the ball's not that big and the field is pretty large. So yeah, if you can't see it because of another reason, maybe it is in the left, right? On the left side, the unexpected side. Yeah. And we have one more also from baseball.
Yeah, I want to share one that I didn't know, but it is fascinating. So it turns out, like 2 centuries ago, it's quite old, there's southpaw.
So if you think of any animal, right? Well, I wouldn't say the foot of a cat. I'd say the paw of an animal. So southpaw.
Southpaw Basically, it's to describe a left-handed boxing blow. So boxing, that is just, there are no kicks.
Does it come from boxing? I thought it came from baseball.
Yeah, theoretically, it's a myth that comes from, I think baseball,
Nice.
Perhaps.
Imported it, maybe?
Yeah, imported, did their own twist. But this existed, is very old, from the 1813.
Oh, but it started with boxing then. Oh,
yeah. So basically, it's like, do you have jabs, hooks, uppercuts, more or less like this, because you can only do hands in boxing.
Right.
What happens when you use the other one that usually is for ward and stuff like this? They call it southpaw. But wait a second. It will make more sense to call it west, because if you use the left, why you call it south?
All right. Yeah, that's true. Sides versus north and south. Yeah, that's interesting. But remember, there is also like this in most places. I think there's this underlying pejorative thing about north is better than south, in many places. So maybe it's something about that. South equals bad, left equals bad, right? And so
I imagine that then was the surprise factor, because a left blow was extremely rare. It's 2 centuries
It came out
ago.
of where? Where did it come from?
Of nowhere.
No, out of left field.
At the left. Exactly. It's a punch or a blow that comes from the left field. So usually you're off guard. You don't expect this from the side. I think now, I'm not an expert. I just watch MMA.
So if you're a boxer, maybe these mini perks as well, maybe if you're a southpaw, that could give you a competitive advantage.
Now I think it's not the case, because now you have a lot of variety. I only watch MMA here and there. I'm not an expert in boxing. It's like tennis. It was very rare to use the left. It was legal. It's just that no one was using it. Now people purposely train the left hand to have this perk. So now it's not a big thing. Because, even if in arm wrestling, that's not a sport, because there's a sport for almost everything, right? When you use your arm, not the entire body, there are categories. So you have the right and the left. They use the left hand. Why? Because by default, if you say nothing, it's the right. And then you have the left arm category. Like, if you want to specialize, feel free to. But it's like, it's an extra thing that if you want to do, feel free. But the main event will always be the right side.
Exactly. That's the default for most of us, most of the world. And would you have any other perks that you want to add? Final thoughts for today as we're celebrating World Left-Handers Day. Or I don't know if it's national or international, but Left-Handers Day, which is weird. I'm just going to say Lefties Day. But yeah, any closing final thoughts? Would you say there's any other perks or reasons you might want to train your left hand or be thankful that you're left-handed? Anything like that?
I would say if you're a right-handed, naturally, don't bother training your left unless it's for a sport thing, because right-handers have dominance of this in the language will be better. Not because now you train the left, you will get those perks. It doesn't. It's not a consequence that if you train this side, you get those perks. It's the opposite. Something that happens in your brain, as a consequence, your dominant side is the left. And the perks you get are from those. Being left-handed is a consequence, not something you need to pursue, basically, unless it's just for tactical reasons, like in tennis or boxing or something like this, not because you want the perks that, hey, I will be more intelligent, or will be a polyglot, or you have a easier time to learn languages, stuff like this. And that depends. You never know. So, for instance, there are some perks if you're with your partner, sentimental partners. If both are left-handed, then this perk it's nullified, right? So, I will leave you to your imagination what that might be. But
I see what you're saying now.
There are other domains that one is left-handed dominant, the other is right, and this has some perks. Not because you're left necessarily. It's because one is left, the other is right. And you have this.
We'll leave that to people's imagination, because we like to say that this is we don't do not safe for work stuff generally. Let's actually bring that in to wrap it up, as we'll say, like in our community that we have, that's one of our guidelines. We have to say, like, there's no not safe for work kind of posting. And so, speaking of the community, I think this will be really interesting to see how many people in our community are right-handed versus left-handed. We should post a poll. And we should tell everybody, like, join our community because you meet all kinds of interesting people. We have such great conversations.
I'll tell you more. Why not making a discount just for lefties?
That's actually not a bad idea. The lefties of the world, you have all these troubles and things like that. Well, not with us. We'll give you a discount. We're trying to attract left-handed accent enthusiasts, let's say, into our community. I could probably do that. We'd have to talk about that more.
There's no such thing. So you cannot say, so I have an accent, right? Because English is not my native language.
Right.
But you cannot say, or it will not make sense to say, I have a left accent or a right accent.
But wait, what about when you're handwriting? Don't you feel, I feel like in English, at least, if I saw a paper and there was writing on it left-handed and right-handed, I could tell.
Right. The handwriting thing, because you don't, the languages that goes left to right, which are many, you just occlude what you're writing. So for instance, I'm pretty good. I was, when I did handwriting, to have a straight line with no guidance. Yeah, I trained so much that I was used to not see what I was writing, unlike the right-handed people, that after a very long while, it doesn't mind what I do, is an absolute straight line that people thought I was cheating. I was using a reference with a paper. It's no. I just have years of experience. And eventually, I was good. That I was like, oh my God, I was pretty good at the straight line. Keeping the straight line. The handwriting is terrible. Now I don't use. The handwriting is just for my name and my signature, which is a thing, by the way. Sometimes in the bank has a chain, and sometimes it's so short that you cannot use the left hand.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the little chain with the little balls on it. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, well, it used to be a problem because I had to sign, and then I cannot do it physically in the place that I'm used to because the chain is too short, because they're only meant for using the right hand. Now, that's not the big issue, because now it's digital. You use the finger, or some people, they prefer to use the digital pen, whatever. Then it's not a big thing, because yes, digital, I don't care. But it used to be a problem with this. So in many different layers. So we only scratched the surface.
So what you're saying is, because left-handers encounter so many problems in the real world, in our community, they should receive some kind of discount. Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. Right. Once again.
Actually, I'm gonna say, let's make that a challenge for people. If anybody's listened to this podcast episode, how many times did we say the word right, just inadvertently? Count up those number of times and then let us know, and I'm sure we can arrange.
And don't use the AI for that.
That's true too. Yeah, they'd have to prove it. Just like I think if somebody wants a discount for being left-handed, they'd have to kind of prove it, I suppose. Like otherwise everyone's like, I'm a lefty. So we're going to end by saying, guys, join us in the community. We have awesome conversations. You get to meet all kinds of cool people from all over the world, right? Some are secret lefties. Some of them are like proud lefties and righties. Like, we don't discriminate there. You could be male, female, anything in between, all the above. And you're welcome in the community as long as you want to work on your communication skills. You want to communicate better, connect with people better. This is the place to do it. Totally free, of course. And you can join with the link down below. And I will see you, William, my OBM, my online business manager. I'll see you pretty much every day, and I hope to see you guys next time in the next episode.
Yep. My pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. See you soon, guys. Thanks a lot.
See you.
Bye. Thanks, guys, for listening all the way to the end. And it's funny that William mentioned he's dominant on his whole left side, because for me, it's the opposite. You might not know this, but I had a brain tumor on the left. So I'm deaf on the left side. And that's also why I have some facial paralysis on the left. I got hit by a car and I had to have knee surgery twice on the left. I also had this life-threatening blood clot. Guess which side that was on? My left. So I hope you've enjoyed this special episode of Left-Handedness. And if you do have a specific topic about accents or pronunciation that you'd like to hear, let me know, and I'll try to make it a reality. And until then, I'll see you in the next episode.